All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Leadership Blend television show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. So we're back for another episode. I think this is like episode 5 in our new season. I'm so excited because the guests have been amazing. I assure you that today's guest will not disappoint. So today's guest, we go back to about a year or two when we were at IB Next together. Yeah. And she was on the show with her counterpart, Dr. Harrison. What is Harrison's last name? Davis. And they had a show called Two Therapists and a Mic. And I loved it. You know, they're actually two therapists and they actually do the work. So it was amazing. And I needed some more therapists. And why not pick up the phone and call the people you know? So I'm so happy to have her here on today. She's going to introduce herself and we're going to get into what is known as code switching, the Black family dynamic, all the other stuff. Actually, it's the adverse to what we talked about Leo Bryant with. So it's kind of the adverse. So we're going to be looking more at Black women. When we spoke with him, we were talking about Black men. So it's going to be really interesting today. But I'm not going to waste any more time. So Dr. Dickerson, introduce yourself.
Hi, yes.
And tell them all of it.
Okay, I'll see how much I can tell because I know you don't want me to be too vague. So I am.
Yeah, don't be vague.
Dr. Asha Dickerson, and I am a counseling professor. I'm also a therapist. I see quite a few clients, most of them being African American women and a few Hispanic women and adolescents. And I mean, that's really my passion because I focus a lot on cultural and social diversity, especially when it comes to counseling, things that people of color have to deal with, like code switching, like functioning in their own families and then functioning out in the communities and determining what's healthy in either one of those areas. In addition to that, I am the chair for the American Counceling Association of Georgia.
Yeah, she don't play no games. She don't play no games.
So I work with all the counselors in Georgia, those who want to work with us, working right now on an interstate compact agreement so that LPCs can go from state to state. You know,
we have a rule. When you use an acronym, you got to tell us what that is. So
licensed professional counselors. Thank you. You know what? I should do that. I tell my students that all the time.
Yeah, we don't
just put out acronyms like everybody knows what that is. So thank you. But we are working on that, just working on making sure that therapists are prepared to work with all of the work that's been placed in our labs lately. Because as you know, with COVID-19, a lot of people, their work has gone down, but the opposite has happened for mental health professionals for a lot of reasons. I mean, if your home life was already messed up, it's really messed up now when you can't get away from each other.
Ugh, I can't even imagine. All right, so let's start at the tip top. You gave me a statistic out there that blew my mind. Yeah. What was that statistic?
Well, the statistic I gave you was that nationwide, before COVID-19 hit, national suicide rates had gone down just overall. However, the suicide rates for African American women and African American children and teens had gone up. In fact, for African American women, there was a 128% increase in suicide. Which is, that's
astronomical. I can't even imagine.
Definitely.
If you would have said 100%, that's still terrible. Right. But over 100%?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And Black women also have the highest increase in college degrees, which a lot of times correlates with success. So it leaves the question, what is happening that Black women are statistically more successful, but also in a mental state where they're so depressed or so downtrodden that they decided they don't want to be here anymore.
So where do we start on that? Where do we start on that? Because that seems like a lot to unpack. Like, I can't fathom over 100% that they're, suicidal, depressed, things of that magnitude. So where do we start? Like, where do you start when you start working with them?
Well, the first place that I start, because we could just say, it's the community. We have racial trauma, and we will talk about that, and we'll talk about code switching. But I think a lot of it starts in the home. And a lot of Black people don't like to hear that some of the things that you do in your home are not healthy. So just last week, I had a father who wanted to have a new counselor for his daughter, his preteen daughter, because he said that the white woman didn't understand his Black family dynamic. Now, when talking to the child and asking her what's going on in the home, she said that just the day before, her father basically cussed her all the way out, up and down.
And how old is she?
An hour, 11 or 12, because she forgot to put on lotion. She didn't put on lotion, and he cussed her out for an hour. He said that she didn't care anything about her appearance, that she looked like a bum. No one would take her seriously. What if she were in front of the mayor? I mean, just tore this little black girl down.
A black father.
Yes, a black father tore his black father down. But he had this premise that it's because I want you to care about yourself and look better. But in the midst of doing that, he made her feel bad about the way she looks, said that her hair wasn't done, as if she could comb her own hair at 11. She could try, but, she's not doing the edge control stuff.
She don't know how to lay baby hairs and stuff like that. She's 11.
And because she forgot to put on lotion, I keep lotion in the car because I might forget to put on lotion.
I forgot to put on lotion today. I'm looking at my ashy ankles as we speak. But hold that thought. We're going to take our...
Dad would have cussed you out.
Clearly, for an hour. All right, so we're going to pause there. We're going to take our first break. And when we come back, we're going to have more with Dr. Dickerson on the Leadership Blend television show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. All right, so Dr. Dixon, you was talking about your this male client tearing out his female daughter, both of which are African American. Mm-hmm. So where did you, after all he said all that, what was your response to it?
Well, that should not be, if it is a part of his black family dynamic, it should not be. And that's just, but I don't do a whole lot of shoulds and coulds, but you definitely should not tear your children down. There are a lot better ways to address a child forgetting to put on lotion, forgetting to brush teeth. I mean, not ironing their clothes. There are so many. I could think of 10 other ways that could have been addressed. But in addition to that, when talking to the child and asking her about it, she says that he was cussing her out all the way to her grandmother's house. She ran into her grandmother's room, who was sitting on the bed, and told her father not to cuss at her, but she still didn't feel protected. She was running, trying to get away from him. And when he grabbed her, she said she went noodle. She just went limp, so he couldn't get her. She called her mom and said, "Mommy, I need help. Please come get." She's terrified. Now you have officially traumatized your child.
Literally, just from forgetting to put on lotion.
All of this turned into a traumatic situation where she may grow up having issues trusting men, or I don't believe this is his first time doing something like that.
I wouldn't.
And my understanding from her is that he also apologizes, showers her with gifts, and then does it again. He's like, I won't do that again. And
that's a prime way to start on her in abusive cycles.
Right,
my
exactly. God. So if indeed this is what your family looks like, toxic is toxic, no matter what race it is. And some things that are common still in the black family is corporal punishment. And I'm not saying don't spank your kids. I'm not saying don't pop their hands. I am saying that there are better ways to do that, like using your hand, because it has a built-in pain mechanism. And if it's hurting your hand, it's hurting your child. You might use a belt. Okay. But when you start using wire hangers and extension cords and your excuses, my mom beat me with an extension cord and I'm just fine. It's like, are you?
Wait, that calls me into questions. I got beat with an extension cord a couple times.
Are you okay?
Let's move on. Let's move on. So, I mean, when you spoke to the father, what was his outlook on it? Because clearly they were not on the same page. So what was his outlook on it from all that action? What did he have to say?
He talked about how much he paid for his clothes, his tailored clothes, his $300 shoes, that he gets his hair cut every week. And he looks like he cares about himself, and his child should care what she looks like. Now, at the same time, okay, great. You have these great clothes and you still have your very expensive car note and living in a rinky-dink apartment in a not safe area. I mean, like, that's new money kind of stuff.
That you don't have.
Not really in investing, but even if you're not investing your money correctly, I'm still focused on the fact that you're not correctly investing in your child. So you could teach her that money and looking nice and everything is okay. It doesn't matter if she is anxious and depressed and suicidal. brings me back to that statistic about Black children and Black women and the increase in suicide. Success does not equal happiness. Money doesn't equal happiness. $300 shoes doesn't equal happiness. And showering your kids with gifts does not equal being a good parent. I think there are a lot of successful people, young people, who think that they're a good parent because they are able to give their children nice homes and nice clothes. But if you are still damaging them psychologically, that does not equal good parenting. Now, I'm not saying that's every Black family. I'm saying that this is this guy's definition of his Black family. So as much as we want to be proud of our heritage and where we come from, there are some areas where we need to be able to recognize that's not healthy and that's not something I should be proud of. And that's something where I need to stop a cycle so that my children could grow up and be different than I was.
All right, so because we need to take a break, but before we do, I'm gonna ask this anyway.
Okay.
So when we had Leo Bryan here, he was talking about Black men and successful Black women and how they struggle with it, because his ideology was the older generation of men didn't teach the younger generation how to appreciate when your woman is successful, and he was using super examples like Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris. How does that look on the women's side? You know, finding a mate and things of that magnitude. I have female friends that are like, they're almost miserable because they're like, I can't find a Black man that's my equal. So does that feed into a lot of, you know?
It's even not even finding one that's your equal. It's even worse when you find one that's not financially your equal and they can't get past you. You making more money than them. So
all right, let's hold that. We can get into it. We're going to unpack that when we get back. So we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to have more of the Leadership Blend television show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. All right, so when we left, we were getting into Black women and this statistic, and we were really starting to get into it. So I asked you about them finding equal mates in Black men, and we were starting there.
Well, so let me say, I taught a class once, a bachelor's in psych class, and there was a statistic in a book. I mean, I ended up making this a really big deal, but the statistic said when it came to Black families that most Black women will marry beneath them. And so be prepared to address this in a therapeutic setting. That's actually what the textbook said. This textbook was not written by a Black person. So apparently this is what...
That's their belief system that's written in a book.
Think about Black...
What year was this?
Man, this was 5 years ago. This is what
that's not super long ago.
Said. I mean, I was shocked.
It was worded that way?
Basically, yeah. Most Black women will marry, what they said was, a man who is not as successful as they are. So I took that as marry beneath them, and be prepared to address that. Now, there are a lot of men, Black men in particular, there are a lot of them who are just fine with being leeches and being parasitic in a relationship. But there are more, well, I'm willing to venture out and say more, who are just not comfortable with their woman being more successful than they are. I can even say I personally have been in relationships where, I mean, no matter where you get in your career, you might not get to where I am in mine. And a guy will harp on that. And I just feel like I'm not happy where I am because you're successful, and just if a woman is willing to accept you for who you are, despite your number of degrees and the money that you have, and willing to support you and your ventures and see that you have potential, it's very difficult when you can't push past that. You can't even embrace.
I mean, that's a big one. I mean, when I think about it, especially the dynamic in my house, my father has always been the breadwinner. My mom worked. but she doesn't make as much as my dad does. And she used her money to, when we were kids, to buy groceries and do little stuff. My mom has never really paid a bill. Sorry, Mom. But my mom has never really paid a bill because, you know, my dad takes care of everything. So the ideology of me dating somebody that makes more money than me, it would make me cringe. I can't say that I would like that. But I'm old school. I'm 41. I'm old school. I'm 41. I'm old school. That just wasn't the way of the world. It's something you will get clowned about by your boys. Like, oh man, your girl made more money than you do. Like, she driving a BMW and you drive one, but she paying for it. Like, that's something that will get you clowned. Now I don't know, because like I said, I'm older. But I digress. We're talking about this situation. So when you counsel women like that, like, what is that like when they're talking to you?
It can be frustrating. I mean, frustrating that either you have a man who's not secure enough in themselves to be okay with your success, or one who makes more money than you and thinks that you should fall in place because of that. So it's like, which one do I want? Fall in place or deal with insecure man? For a lot of women, the man who wants you to fall in place is the most attractive. But for a lot of successful women who already have their own things, and they're confident in their own abilities, and they are genuinely loving and caring, falling in place is just not something that they're going to do. And they might even marry that successful man. And in the end, I mean, it's going to turn, they're going to cuss each other out. Somebody's going to jump on somebody. There's no telling what's going to happen.
So how do you counsel them through that? Like, when that comes up, because I really want to get to what is this logic behind that statistic. That is a very alarming statistic. So where are we at with that? The
first thing that I do is try to dive into what their family system looks like. So I say a family systems approach. What did your family look like? Did your father make more money than your mom? Or was your mother a single mother? Because you may have seen that your mom was just fine without a man. You know, maybe your mom had a few on the roster and no man was going to run her, and she was kind of a pimp. And so that may play into who you are today. But also, even if did you have positive role models? Did you see positive relationships? Or, you know, were your grandmother and grandfather together for 50 years? And did your grandfather also have a side family down the street? Because, see, that's what I've heard a lot of. My grandfather was great. And also, I had this cousin that
we found out was our sister.
We just never talked about it. I mean, that's one of those things where that is a lot of people's family dynamic that should not be. Don't embrace and accept that. Accept that that's toxic and not the best for you.
Yeah, but how do you, if this is a tradition that's been handed down, especially within Black community, how do you change that? Like, where do you even start to be able to stand up to the traditionalists that would say, hey, you know, yeah, he's a good man, but he has a side child, but it's fine because your granddad did the same thing. You just roll with the punches. Like, how do you disrupt that pattern?
The first thing that you do is, because a lot of people don't see where it's affecting them until it usually happens at work, where, you know, you're getting angry and you're popping off. And as a Black woman, you don't want to be labeled
the angry Black woman.
As the angry Black woman. But then I always say, well, are you angry though? And are you a Black woman? And either you may be angry because of what's happening at work, in which case be comfortable with being the angry Black woman. I've had to do that. If you're going to make me out to be the angry Black woman, I'm going to stand up for myself. But also, if you can stand up for yourself at work and demand respect there, what's keeping you from standing up for yourself and demanding respect in your family? Because, you know, there's a lot of older Black people think that it's disrespectful for you to talk back to them because they disrespected you.
Yeah, especially that age thing.
Right.
The respecting elders and stuff of that magnitude. Okay. All right, when we come back, we're going to get into this code switching thing and some of this other stuff with Dr. Dickerson on the Leadership Bend television show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. All right, the conversation on the break. So we're back with Dr. Dickerson, and this notion, I can't get over this notion of black women that make more than their counterpart black men, and trying to, I don't want to say fuse because they belong together, but trying to make this a happy home. And just talking with Dr. Dickerson, like, just with my ideals, like, that would be hard for me to date a woman that makes more money than me, and me moving in her house and driving her cars and her being okay with it. But how long would she really be okay with it? Like,
well, it just depends. Some women aren't going to be okay with it for real, and a lot of them are. So I'll say, I want a successful man, right? But at the same time, can you cut the grass? Can you change the light bulb? Will you take the trash out? And we can say that gender roles aren't necessary, but I'm willing to admit, and a lot of other women are willing to admit, that there are some gender roles that they are assuming are going to be in place. So it's not being a kept man for you to take advantage. Yeah, I'm going to say take advantage.
That's a strong word.
Yeah, I'm going to say take advantage.
Ooh, the sisters, I'm going to light up my feet on that one.
Take advantage in a way that is still mutualistic. All relationships need to be mutualistic. And that means I'm giving as much as you're giving, even though what we're both giving might not be the same thing. I may be giving money, but I'm stressed out all the time. So you're giving me, warm bubble baths. You're making sure I got food in the house. I never have to worry about that the air conditioner isn't working, or that you may be driving my cars, but you may also make sure that all the tires are always new and the oil is changed and, all the maintenance is done. And that's one less thing I have to worry about, because a woman who works hard, these are little nuisances that if you can lessen her load, then, you're still a quality man.
So when you have this conversation with your clients, black women, successful black women, is that kind of the conversation?
Well, the conversation also focuses around how stuck on you are on dating a black man. Because that's another thing you need to consider. Let's look at Kamala Harris, successful black woman, and yes, biracial, went to an HBCU, one of my sorority sisters, and people are like, oh, she's married to a white man. Do you see how this white man had no issue saying, I'm going to be the second male and I'm going to fall in place and do whatever she needs me to do.
And they got married late in life. They got married like, I don't think it was 10 years.
She doesn't have any children that she birthed herself. Because to me, she's very pretty. And looking at her old pictures, I imagine she could pull them.
I would think so.
How many raggedy nothing men did she deal with? How many men were so threatened by her success that they couldn't fall in line and be the husband of the attorney general, the husband of a successful prosecutor? And so finally she found this other guy. Okay, he was white, but he was attractive too. And he was pumping me up. He was like, yeah, get it, boo. and he didn't have baby mama drama. Even his ex-white wife was nice.
These are very interesting variables, but
his kids call her Mamala, not, that black woman you married.
Okay, this is true.
Winning.
Oh man, we got on this. This is true. But when that's presented to your clients, how do they feel? Because that's in our community, it's not frowned upon, but it's not something we run to. So when that option is presented, how do they respond? Like your successful black women clients?
A lot of times it's like they are shocked. That it never crossed their mind, but it's like, now that you bring it up, I guess I could date outside of my race. Like, no one ever said that to me. I just always assumed it was a bad thing.
Within our community, it's still a thing. All right, let's switch gears. We'd be here all day laughing. Let's switch gears. All right, what is code switching?
Okay, so code switching is when you go out into a professional environment, so it doesn't even have to be a professional environment. It could be at the grocery store. You feel like you can't authentically be yourself. So whereas you may act one way at home and with your friends, your whole I'll say your accent changes. I'm saying accent because I know I have a deep Southern accent. And but I know a lot of people who we get out in public and it's like they didn't grow up in Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee. I don't know how to do that. I know that the Southern accent is a real laid back accent, and I'm not willing to put forth that much effort to change my accent. But you stop using different slang, and you want to talk in a way that makes you more accepted out in public. Now, that's strange because I also have seen a lot of people, teens especially of European descent, who were trying so hard to pick up some of the black language.
That's black slang.
Some of the other language. So it's like, is it really necessary for you to code switch? Or another thing to keep in mind is in which of these environments are you not being authentic? Because you can say that you're going into your professional environment and not being who you are, but is it really that you're going back to your family and you have to pretend to be something you aren't?
Which one is the real you?
Right. Because I've heard this from a lot of clients that they go back and then they feel like they got to do all this cussing and learn a bunch of different songs that they aren't really interested in. So, I mean, either way, code switching is changing who you are in different areas. And the root of that is not really knowing yourself and also not really loving yourself because you're so busy trying to impress other people. Like that father we were talking about earlier. So busy trying to wear different clothes and keep up with the fashion trends to impress other people and not really paying attention to the effect that he has on his children and his family. And just FYI, he's also going into his third marriage.
Oh, so, good Lord. I didn't even think there was a spouse involved. I mean, for him to be able to behave that way with a female in the house.
When we talk about, well, there isn't one now, but I guess she'll be there soon. His last two wives were very successful women. That didn't work out for him. This next wife is meek and mild and far less educated than he or his last two wives. So, this might be a come up for her. So it's like, build us a house. We're going to come up.
Oh my God.
He won't cuss me out, even though he cussed his last two wives out and cusses his kids out. As long as I stay in line.
I mean, assuming she knows how forthcoming he's been with information, which I highly doubt.
Women know stuff. Men know stuff too. People know stuff, and people also show you who they are in the beginning. It's up to you whether or not you choose to ignore that. And that's something I hear all the time in session. They want to believe that this person would change or that they could be the one that the person would react to differently. And, let's see. Maybe he'll get past 5. The last 2 marriages didn't last more than 5 years, so maybe he'll get...
Oh, he got 5? I figured he got about 2. That kind of behavior.
It was 2 with the second one.
I figured he get about 2 with that kind of behavior. All right, so we're in our last segment. So how do we fix this? Like, how do we fix... I'm primarily focused on that statistic. How do we fix that statistic between black women and black kids?
I will say that I've seen that it is slowly fixing itself. And I have to give credit to celebrities who have highlighted mental health, like Taraji P. Henson, like Charlemagne the God. They're also having money available for people of color to go get counseling because it's not cheap if your insurance doesn't pay for it, but it's definitely worth it. Mental health and taking care of your mental health and therapy makes a difference. So we have seen more people of color going into counseling now, especially now they don't have to leave out their homes, right? Since you can do it in front of a computer and nobody actually watches you walk. And I mean, it just felt like walking into a therapy clinic was like walking into the abortion clinic. You see them walking into a counselor's office. You don't think I'm crazy. And it's not like that. There can be absolutely nothing wrong and you can go see a counselor. Trust me, it'll keep you from beating people. It'll keep you from jumping on your next boyfriend. It'll keep you from cussing your kids out. You got stuff you need to talk through, and you can't talk through with your parents or other. You can't talk through a lot of times with the people who are the issue for you because they turn it into being something about them, and they get defensive because they need their own therapy. But don't let their lack of getting therapy keep you from getting it.
What advice would you give to successful black women?
Go see a counselor anyway, just because. And also keep a sister circle. And within that sister circle, if someone is toxic, do not be afraid to cut them off in a loving way. I hope you find the circle for you. This circle is not for you. We uplift each other. Because you have those friends who are parasitic. Again, it's back to that parasitic relationship. All relationships need to be mutualistic, not just romantic. Friendships, parent-child, once you're an adult, they need to be mutualistic.
All right. How do people get in touch with you?
So I can I have a website. And it's AshaDickerson.com. That's ASHA Dickerson.com. I can be reached via email at asha.dickerson@gmail.com. And a lot of people reach out to me on Instagram. So that's
but nothing's off limits. At this point, nothing's off limits.
Dr. Dr_ASHASD. That's my Instagram handle. I don't do the Twitter.
I tried it. It doesn't matter how many times I tried it.
And I'm too old for Snapchat too.
Yeah, I'm not doing that either. I have enough. I have the Twitter, the LinkedIn. That's enough. Those four are enough.
I'm good on LinkedIn too. People can contact me there. Just search Asha Dickerson. I think it's /Asha Dickerson after LinkedIn.com. But again, not that tech savvy, so I have no idea.
I'm concerned. All right. So special thanks to our special guest today, Dr. Asha Dickerson. Thank you for being with me today,
dear.
Thank
you for having me.
Oh, it's like old times. I'm sorry we laugh so much. We used to do this in the studio all the time. We just laugh before the show starts. But we will see you guys next week, same time, same place, on the Leadership Blend television show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.